Tennessee fans, I don't want to scare you, but at the same time, maybe you're fueling this anyway. But man, there's a lot of hype around this program that hasn't really done anything yet. Although certainly 2021 was a great step in the right direction for first-year head coach Josh Heupel. But now we're in year two, and much expected. You got Charlie Burris on the line. Always enjoyed Charlie's take and conversation. You can catch Charlie on A to Z Sports on Big Orange Podcast. Charlie, how's it going?
Really good. Thanks for having me back for however many. I mean, who knows? We've done this a lot, but I appreciate you still having me.
Georgia and Alabama are at the top. They're 1-2. Vandy's clearly at the bottom. The rest of the SEC, 3 through 13, anybody can have an opinion on who's next and who's falls into that pecking order. But man, in watching most of the SEC media days, a lot of attention given to Tennessee as being a possible breakout team, a lot of excitement about what we saw glimpses of last year, and obviously the offensive talent and scheme excites people. But you understand that this is kind of a chic pick of people right now to have Tennessee jump this year.
You have the pieces to the formula that has worked for a lot of teams in the past. I would put it that way. They have the most prolific quarterback, returning quarterback outside of the Heisman winner in the SEC. Obviously, Bryce Young was truly phenomenal. Hendon Hooker, stats-wise, is number 2 behind him in the SEC coming back. So you have quarterback, which is honestly in college football these days is like the thing you have to really find success, unless you're Nick Saban and every player you have is a 6-star recruit. But you start there. You have good skill players. Cedric Tillman, who is the most prolific wide receiver in the SEC coming back. He was a 1,000-yard receiver a year ago. Total breakout last season. So you have a nice duo there. You have a pretty good running back. Offensive line is a little dicey, although you have a couple of 5-stars still on that offensive line in front of Hooker. And of course, Josh Heupel's insane offense that last year shot Tennessee up to near the top of offenses in all of college football, just magically. It's insane. And you have a bunch of senior guys playing in that offense that are going to know the system even better this year and will be even more conditioned to it. And then the defense, they just kind of hang on for dear life. But this season, if they hang on for dear life a little bit better than they did last year, you can build on 7 wins and you go from 7 wins to 9 wins and a bowl game with potential for 10 wins. I mean, that would be a borderline miracle for Tennessee this year. And I think it's a very real possibility. Do I think they are going to do that? Is that my prediction? I'm not sure yet, to be totally honest. But I would say this. It is definitely trendy to pick Tennessee right now because of the way the offense was just so effective, and it's just kind of a fresh pick because they're on the way back up. But I don't think it's unfounded. I think there really is some there, so to speak. I would put it that way.
Charlie, I didn't see everything from SEC Media Days concerning Tennessee, but I saw a lot. And it was all talk about the offense and how exciting it is. And that's great. And that's amazing. And we just expect it to get better because Hendon Hooker talked about, despite his amazing stats that you just alluded to, 31 touchdowns and 3 picks, that there are things that he can do better that he talked about, throws that he missed. And obviously he was in a situation where he was battling for the job and lost the job out of August camp. So he didn't get first team reps. All these things work to his advantage coming into this year, being the entrenched starter for the entire offseason. But I'm going to flip to the defense and say, yeah, it's one of these situations where it's like, just give us some help, get us some stops, or sometimes just keep the offense on the other offense on the field for a long time and make them kick a field goal. Are there traces? Are there individual players that were decent last year that could break out, that could make this a better defense this year?
Yeah, so you start. I mean, Tennessee had I forget exactly where they finished, but one of the best stat lines last year for tackles for loss. To some extent, that is a product of the fact that they just play so many downs. The defense does. They're just on the field a ton, so you get a lot of opportunities for tackles for loss. But still, the players got to make those plays, and they did. You have guys like Byron Young on the edge. You have guys like who was at SEC media days. Why am I drawing a blank? It wasn't Trayvon Flowers, right? Why am I drawing a blank?
Trayvon Flowers.
That is what it was. I was couldn't remember if I had his last name wrong. There's been a couple Trayvons on Tennessee's team in the last few years. Yeah, Flowers. Sorry about that. That was weird. I just drank coffee. My brain. I'm seeing sounds right now. Yeah, Trayvon Flowers. Nah, it's fine. Leave it in there. But Flowers, who I would say you really want him to be the replacement for Lante Taylor. You lose Lante Taylor, it's a huge amount of production, and not just a huge amount of production, but he was a big leader. He was a very vocal leader. He brought a lot of fire to that defense, and made some really big plays last year for you. And you got to replace him, and you hope that Flowers is that guy, or someone is that guy, and you really hope that a guy like Jeremy Banks can step up, or some of the Juwan Mitchell is another guy at linebacker that you really hope can come in and grow. Juwan Mitchell ended up getting injured and didn't really play much last year, but you hope that he's a guy that can come in and be a big contributor. But Jeremy Banks, he's incredibly athletically gifted, but a real hothead. He makes a lot of stupid plays and has gotten a lot of personal fouls and can hurt the team that way. If he can cut that out, focus on just his athleticism, I think he can be a great sort of leader for that defense too. So there are absolutely pieces to answer that question. Absolute pieces. You have Byron Young's stats there: 46 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. I was saying it on our show this past week. You take that production and specifically the sacks, and you double it. And I mean, I think Tennessee could arguably have one of the better pass rushes in the SEC if you can get that from him. Just take that career step forward, because you do also have guys like Jeremy Banks, who you're showing the stats of there, who were really they put up a lot of numbers last year, 128 tackles. I mean, that guy's all over the field. You just gotta get him to be the better leader, the senior guy, level-headed. And I also said this on our show. I would love to hear Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator. I would love to hear his real thoughts right now about where this unit is at. They lost key pieces. I mean, it was Matthew Butler, who was great on the defensive line relative to what Tennessee did last year on defense, and just some dudes like that where you go, how is that production getting replaced? And I'll be watching closely to see exactly where they go on defense, because the fact is this: Tennessee's going to get theirs on offense. No one disputes that. I think Heupel's system is just crazy effective. He springs guys open, they score points. But if the defense can hold marginally better, give up 30 points instead of 35 points in a game, Tennessee will, if you only score 30 points against Tennessee, most games Tennessee's going to beat you. Unless you're Georgia, where you can just truly, you have the dudes to hold that offense down. Tennessee can beat you if you score 30 points against them. And just that marginal step forward. And I think that is the step that could take Tennessee from 7 to 9 wins, 7 to 8, 7 to 10, But it all comes down to, will they actually do that? The Tennessee fan in me that has been beaten down for years and years and years says no. But I would love to be proven wrong. I was proven wrong multiple times this season. Basketball won an SEC championship. Never thought I'd see that. Baseball won an SEC championship. Things are going right at Tennessee. So maybe it's football's turn.
Well, Charlie, I'm going to take the negative side. I'm going to take the positive side. I got one angle from each perspective here. Let's go negative first. Hendon Hooker was remarkable, and we cited all the ways in which he may be even better this year because of the preparation going into the season. However, 68%, that's pretty high. That's really high. That's one of the best marks in the nation. That's going to be difficult to duplicate, and especially 31 TDs, 3 picks. Those 3 picks becomes still a reasonable, strong season of 9 or 10. That's another 7 or 8 turnovers on the board. And still being a very good quarterback, if let's say he goes from 31-3 to 31-10.
I don't want to speak that into existence, him taking a step back, but honestly, I would take more interceptions if he would take more chances, to be honest, because you definitely saw a lot last year where he could have gone for broke in some scenarios and probably potentially made a big play, but he didn't, trying to protect the ball. I mean, protecting the ball, especially with the amount that you need to score in Josh Heupel's system to win games. I mean, turnovers are devastating. It can ruin anybody's game, but particularly for the way that Tennessee plays, it's really bad. But I honestly wouldn't mind seeing him be a little more of a gunslinger. He's not incredibly accurate, but he's the most accurate guy you have. I would say that. And with an off season to work, maybe that improves. Yes, his stat line was awesome, but there are ways that I think that he could get better, go forward, be more comfortable in the system, which I think is a huge piece of that. But yeah, as much as we say, well, if they just do this, they can get to 9 wins. I think you can also go, there's a lot of toss-ups on the schedule. If they don't do this and, X and X, it could take a turn the other direction just as much. It's a tenuous situation. There's going to be pressure. You got to go like at South Carolina. That one scares me because I think South Carolina is going to be better than they were last year. Probably not a whole lot better, but still. And it's at South Carolina. And that I think a lot of Tennessee fans right now are talking about that one just being like, oh, yeah, that's a win. I don't know. I mean, say Rattler doesn't stink like it seems like he might, and, he actually turns out to be okay. I don't know. I would not just make that an automatic W, and that's where the season could turn, is if you drop games like that. So we'll just have to see. It's just a matter of time. Like that's really it. We just got to let it play out.
Well, I think Spencer Rattler is going to be like a top 15 quarterback in the country. You're taking it from me. But my glass half full part of this, and you're taking us down that road of the schedule, looks at it this way. Aside from the Kentucky game, 45-42, there are really no games that Tennessee won that were in jeopardy of being a loss. Like, Tennessee's wins were all comfortable wins. The losses were excruciating, some of them. The Pitt game could be turned around to a win. I'm not predicting a win over Alabama, but the Alabama game was a game early in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, you were in it.
The Ole Miss game could have been a win. If Hendon Hooker's on the field at the end of the game, maybe the Ole Miss game's a win against the top 10 team in the country. We know the Purdue game could have easily been a win. There are more wins on the table if you take the performance from last year than converted losses on the table.
Yes, I 100% agree, because you absolutely ran away with the Missouri game. You ran away, beat them by 30, beat South Carolina by 30. The Kentucky game was, I think they're a really great foil for Tennessee right now. They're similarly sized talent-wise. They're kind of in a similar camp there, but they just play such different styles of football. Like, Kentucky is this sort of slow, plodding, a little more defensive-minded way that Stoops plays, and Tennessee just with this crazy high-octane stuff. That was an incredible game for anybody that watched it, and I think you're exactly right. And that's why I feel more optimistic than anything. I just look at this and I go, this is a formula to improve. I feel much better about them improving than I am worried about them taking a step back, if that makes sense. Because I think you have an amazing opportunity to win that pick game. That's a huge kind of pivotal game in terms of getting to 8 or 9 wins. You got to win that one. And of course they don't have that quarterback. They don't have Pickett. They don't have the Addison, right? That was his name, right?
He went to USC.
Yeah, went to USC. They don't have that kid anymore, and that's a golden opportunity to get a win you need to get to that 8-9 win mark. And then you got to win the ones that you're supposed to win. And so far, Josh Heupel has shown that he can be that guy. Go in and win the ones you're supposed to win. He hasn't flubbed that up yet, and Pruitt was big on that. So was Butch. Anytime things were on the line, it was down the toilet as far as they were concerned. And so hopefully he sticks with that going forward, because it would just be, it would be everything for Tennessee right now to have a surprise year in football. It's the one thing that's missing. I said basketball is great. Baseball is great. Well, come on, football. It's your turn. Let's get up here and have a good year. And as I said at the very beginning to that first question, the formula is there. Will they execute? We'll just have to see.
Got Charlie Burris on the line, Big Orange Podcast. Catch him right there, A to Z Sports. And you see the Twitter handle right there. Just put an underscore right in the middle of Charlie Burris, and you can find him right on Twitter.